The countdown to the disaster has begun. The foreboding news has arrived, striking fear into every Californian soul. Scientists have just disclosed an imminent and colossal act by the San Andreas Fault. The words "the big one" have long haunted their dreams, but now the grim reality looms closer than ever. Anxiety swells along this treacherous fault line, rendering the entire region teetering on a precipice of uncertainty. Will this be the cataclysmic earthquake that experts have long warned about? The San Andreas Fault is a massive rift in the Earth's crust that traverses the far western region of North America. The San Andreas Fault runs from the northernmost point of the Gulf of California in the U.S. to western California before emerging into the Pacific Ocean in the well-known region of San Francisco. Large earthquakes that occurred near the ground along the fault's path have been linked to the tectonic activity there. San Francisco experienced a terrible earthquake in 1906, a less severe one in 1989, and a massive and destructive earthquake in the Los Angeles neighborhood of Northridge in 1994, along one of the bigger secondary faults of the San Andreas. All of these tremors occurred on or around the San Andreas Fault. The San Andreas Fault is generally accepted as the main border between the North American Plate and the Northern Pacific Plate, the two largest plates that make up the Earth's crust. The theory of plate tectonics relies on this idea. The Northern Pacific Plate is sliding laterally through the North American Plate while also moving in a northerly direction, making the San Andreas Fault a strike-slip fault. Over the course of geologic time, the plates have shifted relative to one another at a rate of around 1 centimeter each year. Since the beginning of the 20th century, however, this rate has increased to between 4 and 6 millimeters every year. A total of 6.4 meters of positive fault movement occurred during the 1906 earthquake. In close proximity to the San Andreas Fault is where the vast majority of Californians call home. A tunnel for the Bay Area Rapid Transit System has been bored right through the fault zone, and there are towns, villages, housing projects, and roadways erected directly on top of it. Some of the measures taken to reduce damage from earthquakes include the construction of buildings that can absorb shocks and the reinforcement of highways and bridges. As a result of tectonic plates moving in parallel, the Earth's crust has a massive crack known as the San Andreas Fault. This fault has a history of large earthquakes, fissures, and landslides. Another one may be on the horizon. In geology, a fault is a split or succession of splits between massive, relative moving rock fragments. For instance, the San Andreas Fault is thought to be the longest fault in the world at around 800 miles. It is also common for the two sides of a fault to differ significantly in function. Faults are caused by plate tectonics. Though sturdy, Earth's crust sits on a pliable mantle. The crust itself breaks apart during this process, stiffening into what are called tectonic plates. These plates shift their relative positions by sliding under and alongside one another. However, due to the high levels of friction involved, the plates don't always go with the flow or glide past each other, causing a great lot of stress. Because of this, fractures and cracks may appear inside the plate. The most intense shakes result from the collision of two or more tectonic plates, but earthquakes can happen anywhere. The same thing occurs along the San Andreas Fault, which marks the boundary between the Northern Pacific Plate and the North American Plate. Since the relative motion between the plates along the San Andreas Fault is often horizontal, we call it a transform fault rather than a subduction fault like those found in subduction zones. Seismic activity is also typically associated with many other large major faults, of which there are several. Earthquakes occur near faults and the plate's edges because of the friction between them. Due to the imperfect smoothness of the plate's edges, friction acts against the plate's attempts to slide past each other. Concentrated areas of stress and strain develop, often along the fault line when one plate is being ground away from another. When strain exceeds a critical threshold, a fault ruptures and releases tension in the form of seismic waves. The San Andreas Fault was formed over 30 million years ago. However, the southern portion of the fault was only handiest existed for about 5 million years. The fault's slip rate is rather slow, between 20 and 35 millimeters every year. This is about the same rate that your fingernails grow. This may not seem like a lot of money, and over the course of a few years it may not amount to much. The constant motion of the plates, however, generates the aforementioned stress, which is therefore an excellent method to be launched as earthquakes over longer timescales. Over a century has passed since the fault was originally discovered. The fissure was identified in 1895 by UC Berkeley geology professor Andrew Lawson, who named it Laguna de San Andreas after a nearby lake. Lawson didn't realize he had also uncovered a previously unrecognized category of earthquakes, but he had. However, let's not shoot ourselves in the foot anymore. It was widespread knowledge that California had a lot of earthquakes. Before the theory of plate tectonics became widely accepted in the 1970s, it was not understood how closely the San Andreas Fault was linked to the earthquakes. It had not been that long time because the Hayward earthquake of 1868, which had caused devastation on both sides of the bay and claimed many lives. But not even Lawson had a complete understanding of what was going on. Everything altered after the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. The earthquake killed more than 3,000 people and leveled 80% of the city. Lawson assembled a group of leading geologists from throughout the United States to look into the tremor's possible connection to the San Andreas Fault after the fires were put out. The team separated seismograph records from all over the world, recorded the damage to San Francisco homes, assessed the geology around San Francisco, and mapped their findings into what is now known as the Lawson Report. The report became so complete and crucial that it became used as a benchmark for future research on earthquakes in the U.S. More importantly, the analysis provided unarguable evidence that the San Andreas Fault is the mother of all earthquake faults. Lateral movement alongside the plate, however, remained a disputed notion. In 1953, geologists Mason Hill and Thomas Dibley proposed a bold theory that San Andreas was spreading laterally. Almost 50 years have passed since the initial discovery. The theory of plate tectonics was not proven to be correct for a very long time. More significant earthquakes occurred than in 1868 and 1906. As a result, numerous studies were conducted on the San Andreas, greatly enhancing our understanding of geology and the fault itself. In the 24 years prior, approximately 3,000 articles were published about crack. For instance, studies have shown that the fault triggers a magnitude 6.0 earthquake once every 22 years on average. These incidents happened in 1857, 1881, 1901, 1922, 1934, and 1966, with amazing consistency. It's difficult to predict when earthquakes will occur because the next one after 1966 didn't happen until 2004. While pent-up tension suddenly releases, earthquakes can occur. While the system's overall behavior can be predicted, the likelihood of a particular earthquake occurring is not. However, researchers have revealed several standards. Many cities and trends in California were founded directly on the San Andreas Fault, and here is where the vast majority of the state's population resides. Concern has grown, and rightfully so, as millions upon millions of people remain at risk of an earthquake even after taking safety measures. Seismic events with a magnitude of 6 rarely cause considerable damage unless they occur in a densely populated area. However, a magnitude 7 or 8 earthquake, or even bigger, may cause considerable destruction. The logarithmic scale used by seismologists has a base of 10. Therefore, each increase in earthquake magnitude represents a 10-fold increase in power. A magnitude 8 earthquake is 100 times more powerful than a magnitude 6 earthquake and 10 times more powerful than a magnitude 7 earthquake. Most homes in California are located on the San Andreas Fault, and some cities and other developments have even been built directly on top of it. It's easy to see why so many people are worried about the situation, considering that even if some safeguards have been made, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, are still at risk of being harmed by an earthquake. Despite the fact that magnitude 6 earthquakes can do a lot of damage in densely populated areas, they are not catastrophic any longer. Absolute devastation might be caused by an earthquake of magnitude 7, or even more catastrophically by an earthquake of 8. A logarithmic scale with a 10-point basis is used to quantify the severity of earthquakes. When do you think a truly significant earthquake will happen on the San Andreas Fault? Accurately predicting when an earthquake will occur is tough. The best we can do is build up a general idea of when one might develop. Let us repeat that last part. Despite this, a 2006 study published in Nature found that the San Andreas Fault has reached an adequate strain level for an earthquake of magnitude 7 or greater. The risk is greatest in the southern part of the fault, which corresponds to the area around Los Angeles, as determined by the study. Multiple studies' findings suggest Los Angeles is likely overdue for an earthquake. More than 300 years have passed since a major earthquake struck the Los Angeles area. While significant earthquakes occurred relatively recently on the critical 1857 and northern 1906 segments of the fault, relieving some of the pressure there, almost 300 years have passed with no major tremors in the Los Angeles area. In the event of an earthquake, the metropolitan area including Palm Springs and Indio, together with neighboring municipalities in San Bernardino County, Riverside County, and Imperial County in California, might incur significant damage. Especially for older buildings and people living in coastal areas on unconsolidated gravel or in sites with high water tables, it is difficult to even put into words how terrible an earthquake of this value would be. It's challenging to make accurate forecasts about the occurrence of earthquakes of this magnitude, as evidenced by the fact that there has been no major earthquake in the Los Angeles area in the 16 years since the study became published. While the risk does surely appear to be excessive, it's miles tough to throw a schedule at the problem due to the fact there's so much unknown surrounding it, and subsequent USGS studies have made numerous forecasts about the possibility of future catastrophes. The fact that the San Andreas Fault causes shallow to medium earthquakes further adds to the complexity of the situation. This means that the hypocenter of an earthquake, the point at which a rupture begins within the Earth, is between 70 and 300 kilometers deep, despite the fact that the vast majority of people on Earth who experience strong earthquakes live closer to the surface. These intermediate depth earthquakes are more mysterious than their shallower counterparts and more difficult to study. Is there anything else we can do? We can't stop earthquakes from happening, but we'll figure out how to live through them. Strict manufacturing regulations have been shown to save lives in places like Japan and Chile. Structures in earthquake zones need an unconventional layout and sturdy construction to withstand potential ground shaking. There are some regions that are no longer suitable for seismic safety and must be avoided. On the other hand, reinforcing structures that are already in place is a challenging and expensive endeavor, and consequently, there hasn't been much progress made in this direction. To put it in a more straightforward manner, California is not always ready for a huge earthquake, and a major earthquake won't be all that far off in the foreseeable future. The only thing that research can do is supply us with evidence. In the end, it is up to legislators and communities to put protection measures into place. In spite of the fact that our understanding of the San Andreas Fault and the seismogenic mechanisms connected with various faults is not even close to being complete, it has significantly improved over the course of the previous number of decades. When the inevitable earthquake does come, all we can do is hope that these facts can be used to develop reasonable standards in an effort to prevent the loss of life and damage to property. That's all for the video today. We will be right back with more. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.